Good morning, afternoon, and evening. My name is David Salmonson. I'm joined here today by my colleagues Max Klauser, Chloe Lynn, Tim Holloway, and Charlotte Abbey. We are very excited to present our organizational behavior team project. For this project, we decided to investigate racial discrimination in the workplace at three major hotel chains: Intercontinental Hotels Group, Marriott International, and Mandarin Oriental. Here is a quick overview of today's presentation. First, Charlotte will begin with a brief introduction and a general summary of the management issue we investigated. Next, Max, Tim, and I will be discussing what we found in researching IHG, Marriott, and Mandarin Oriental. Max and Tim will then break down our recommendations for addressing this issue. Finally, Chloe will wrap up our presentation with some final takeaways and suggestions. Now, I'd like to introduce my colleague Charlotte to introduce today's topic and summarize our management issue.
Thank you, David. Today I'll be introducing our project and research we have been conducting over the last month. In our research paper, we decided to carry out a comparative analysis of racial discrimination of three hotel management organizations. We analyzed the unique strategies adopted to foster diverse leadership and inclusive organizational cultures. After we researched each company individually, we made general recommendations based on our observations and findings. Next, I'll be discussing diversity, the management issue we focused on. Diversity leads to a variety of perspectives, innovation, employee engagement, and more. When employees are included, the intrinsic motivation increases and produces positive performance results. Individual employees that have a positive attitude about the company they work for are far more likely to participate in collaborative teams. Inclusion impacts all of these organizations and touches most companies in the modern political and social climate. Inclusion has become an expectation for consumers of large companies such as these hotel organizations. It is essential that these issues be addressed and that companies are consciously developing programs to foster an assortment of demographics. As learned in organizational behavior, this will not occur on its own, and refusing to acknowledge the issue will only contribute to an unjust environment. Failure to address racial discrimination could lead to lawsuits, public relation issues, or major financial repercussions. Additionally, disgruntled employees that derive from inclusion conflicts could directly lead to a hostile environment and increased employee turnover. At IHG, Marriott, and Mandarin Oriental, many programs have been instituted to augment heterogeneity. Additionally, these companies have focused on increasing racial minorities at high-level managerial positions. However, despite a lot of these programs, there is still a long way to go in making the culture a safe place for all employees, regardless of race or other identifiers. Next, Max will be discussing IHG's unique approach to diversity and inclusion.
Intercontinental Hotels Group is a multinational hospitality company that has over 5,900 hotels across 100 countries and is a company that places a strong emphasis on diversity and inclusion in the workplace. The first important organizational process in preventing racial discrimination in the workplace is a company's diversity and leadership. As a part of their 2018-2019 Responsible Business Targets report, IHG made a commitment to increase the diversity of their senior leaders, and this was also one of the three main points outlined in their strategic report that relates to their culture. These leaders are role models and demonstrate the values of the company so that others in the workplace adhere to them. The company also has a strong leadership training program that develops espoused values and aligns with the attraction, selection, and attrition ASA model, in which individuals whose personalities are a good match with the culture are more likely to be attracted and stay with the company. IHG also made multiple commitments in the Americas that relate to fostering a diverse workplace that does not participate in racial discrimination, which were all put forth by IHG's CEO, Keith Barr. These commitments included launching a bespoke program to create a more inclusive environment for Black colleagues, doubling representation of ethnically diverse colleagues in Americas-based corporate leadership roles over the next 4 years, and partnering with the National Urban League and National Center for Civil and Human Rights to support education, empowerment, and employability in the community.
Thank you, Max. Marriott International is the world's largest hotel company with over $42 billion. Marriott has recognized the importance of embracing cultural differences and has partnered with over 30 diversity organizations. Marriott is committed to building cultural bridges and inspiring discovery around the world. Through the Valuing Our World of Differences program, the company trains employees in cultural sensitivity. Marriott's diversity and inclusion efforts have been recognized. This year, Marriott ranked #1 on Diversity Inc.'s Top 50 Companies for Diversity list. Conversely, Marriott has been criticized for promoting corporate lending practices alleged to discriminate against minorities. Additionally, there have been lawsuits by employees alleging unequal treatment or fault lines, which are hypothetical dividing lines that may split a group or based on racial attributes. Now, I will pass it on to Tim, who will discuss our analysis of Mandarin Oriental.
Thank you, David. Now, for our third and final company, I will be analyzing the Mandarin Oriental Hotel Group. The Mandarin Oriental Hotel Group is a multinational luxury hotel operating company with 33 hotels and 7 residences across 23 countries. The company's overarching mission is, quote, to completely delight and satisfy our guests. However, their commitment to guests may overlook the social ethicality of their employment practices and employee treatment. On Mandarin Oriental's website, there are no espoused values nor any policies related to diversity and inclusion regarding employment or employee treatment within their company. Furthermore, as shown in the diagram, company employees gave Mandarin Oriental a mere 3.5 out of 5-star diversity and inclusion rating on Glassdoor.com, compared to IHG's 4.6 and Marriott's 4.3 rating. The effect of the company's lack of commitment to diversity and inclusion came to fruition in 2011, when they faced a lawsuit for discriminating against a Muslim employee by preventing him from serving the Israeli delegation at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Washington, D.C. All of these things indicate that the Mandarin Oriental Hotel Group has a complete lack of commitment to hiring employees of diverse backgrounds, as well as preventing ethnic and racial discrimination in the workplace. Now, for our recommendations based on our analysis of these companies. I will begin by explaining our individual recommendations for the companies. To begin, by fostering enthusiasm and focus towards its commitments to diversity and inclusion through the transformational leadership strategy, specifically inspirational motivation, IHG can better motivate employees to commit to making meaningful change in regards to topics such as minimizing discrimination. As for Marriott International, they should continue their efforts to find ways of expanding access to diversity and inclusion programs. Along with this, they need to follow IHG's model of goal setting regarding diversity and inclusion. This model follows all the aspects of traditional goal setting theory in that it is specific, measurable, and challenging. And finally, Mandarin Oriental needs to improve in several ways. First, they should implement a diversity and inclusion sector or committee into the company's functional structure, as this will bring new perspectives, minimize discrimination, and also make it easier for the implementation of programs that prevent ethnic and racial discrimination within the organization. On top of this, like Marriott, they need to follow IHG's model of setting more specific, measurable, and challenging goals. Now, Max will discuss our general recommendations.
First, each organization should establish and build upon the examples set by Marriott in setting up a board of directors committee to focus on diversity and inclusion within the organization. Where each hotel is already working with union employees, the committee should periodically meet with union leaders to listen to the union's suggestions in achieving those goals. The board of directors committee should also consider employee representation on the board in order to further ensure representation in all employment policy decisions. Another recommendation is that the hotels can schedule periodic semi-annual evaluations of goals set by these board of directors committees and evaluate whether these objectives are being met. If they're not, the committee should consider why the goals are not being achieved and what modifications can be made. If the organization is not working with the union, the company should seek to establish a committee of minority workers to provide anonymous suggestions as to what they think would be helpful in advancing minority interests. Organizations should also commit to preventative racism personnel policies and periodical racial equity training. This would help implement an inclusive culture of diversity on a personal level, not just purely at the management level.
After researching company policies, we came to some universal understandings of organizational behavior lessons. Justice and equality are an important part of any organizational culture. Managing by objective, setting goals for direct reports enables companies to achieve specific diversity and inclusion goals. These companies can use after-action reviews, a very structured approach to determine where they can improve with their respective initiatives. Members of the organization should have a relational mindset and approach every interaction as an opportunity to connect, share, give, and learn. This helps reduce group biases and refine organizational culture. All of these concepts can be connected to facilitate effective management of diversity and inclusion. There are three takeaways from this research. Diverse teams outperform homogeneous teams. Inclusion issues appear everywhere in an organization, and some processes of implementation are more effective than others. For companies to successfully integrate employees into their culture, they need methods in place to smoothly initiate relationships and group work. First, it is integral to evaluate employees, managers, and guests to ensure each level of the company receives fair and equal treatment. Second, there should be preventative policies in place prior to any unjust events. Lastly, a board of directors solely dedicated to inclusion is useful to Marriott. Having a reliable group make consistent expectations about hiring processes, training programs, or relationships with union leaders is fundamental for creating an organizational culture that has shared assumptions about treatments of all employees. Thank you for listening to our presentation on racial discrimination within the workplace.